My girlfriend said, "If you can't handle me partying with my ex, maybe we should break up." I said, "Good idea." The next day, I accepted a promotion across the country. When she texted, "Can we talk?" I sent her a photo from my new apartment. I, 29M, never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd walk away from a 3-year relationship over a single argument. But here I was, standing in an empty apartment 1,500 miles from everything I'd known, feeling more alive than I had in months. The whole thing started on a Thursday night. I was working late, trying to close a deal that had been dragging on for weeks, when my phone lit up with a text from her. She wanted to know if I minded her going to some party downtown. I asked who was throwing it, just casual conversation, and she mentioned it was her ex from college. That gave me pause, not because I was the jealous type, but because this particular ex had been a recurring character in our relationship drama. He'd text her at odd hours, always with some excuse about needing advice or wanting to catch up. She'd assured me repeatedly that there was nothing there, that they were just friends, that I was being paranoid. I told her I wasn't comfortable with it. Not a demand, not an ultimatum, just honest communication about my boundaries. What happened next still plays in my mind like a bad movie. She called me immediately, and I could hear music and voices in the background. She was already there. She asked why I was trying to control her life, why I couldn't trust her, why I had to make everything difficult. I stayed calm, explained that it wasn't about control but about respect, about how I'd feel if the situation were reversed. That's when she hit me with the line that changed everything. She told me that if I couldn't handle her partying with her ex, maybe we should just break up. The silence that followed felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. I'd spent 3 years building a life with this person, planning a future, compromising on big decisions and small ones. I'd turned down job opportunities to stay in the same city. I'd spent holidays with her family, even when mine needed me. I'd invested everything into making us work. And here she was, at a party with her ex, essentially telling me to deal with it or leave. So I told her it was a good idea. She laughed. Actually laughed. She said I was being dramatic, that I'd cool off, and we'd talk tomorrow like we always did after a fight. Then she hung up, and I sat there in my office with the city lights blinking through the window, feeling something shift inside me. This wasn't anger or hurt, not exactly. It was clarity. My phone had been sitting on silent for the past hour because of my meeting, and when I checked it, I found an email that had arrived 2 hours earlier. It was from the VP of operations at our company's West Coast office. They wanted me to consider relocating to take over as regional director. The position had been mentioned to me 6 months ago, and I dismissed it immediately because of her. She had a job she loved here, friends, family. Moving wasn't an option. Now, staring at that email with her words still echoing in my head, moving seemed like the only option that made sense. I responded right then and there, told them I was interested and asked when they needed an answer. They replied within 20 minutes, probably surprised by my sudden enthusiasm after months of polite deflection. We set up a call for the next morning. I went home that night and looked around our shared apartment. Her stuff was everywhere. Books she'd never finished reading, shoes kicked off by the door, that ridiculous throw pillow collection she'd insisted we needed. 3 years of accumulated life together, and suddenly it all felt like someone else's story. She came home around 2 in the morning. I was still awake, sitting in the dark living room with my laptop. She didn't notice me at first, just stumbled in and headed for the bedroom. Then she saw the light from my screen and jumped. She asked what I was doing up, her words slightly slurred. I told her I was working on some things. She sat down next to me, suddenly affectionate, saying she was sorry about earlier, that she might have overreacted. She said we were fine, that we'd always be fine, that this was just another bump in the road. I asked her how the party was. She said it was fun, that she was glad she went. I asked if her ex was there. She hesitated, then admitted he was, but that nothing happened. They just talked. I asked what they talked about. She got defensive again, asked why I was interrogating her, told me I needed to trust her or this relationship would never work. I closed my laptop and told her she was right, that this relationship wasn't working, that I'd accepted a job across the country and would be leaving in 2 weeks. The look on her face was something I'll never forget. Shock, confusion, disbelief. She asked if I was serious. I told her I'd never been more serious about anything in my life. She started crying then, asking how I could just throw away 3 years over one stupid fight. I reminded her that she was the one who suggested breaking up. She said she didn't mean it, that people say things they don't mean when they're upset. I told her that maybe that was the problem, that I was tired of having to guess when she meant what she said and when she was just testing me, that I was exhausted from walking on eggshells, from second-guessing every boundary I tried to set, from feeling like the bad guy every time I expressed discomfort with something. She spent the next hour cycling through every emotional appeal she could think of. Tears, anger, promises to change, accusations that I was abandoning her, threats to make the next 2 weeks hell. I sat through all of it feeling nothing but a strange sense of peace. When she finally exhausted herself and went to bed, I started packing. The next morning, I had my call with the West Coast office. They were thrilled I was accepting the position. They offered to have movers handle everything, to set me up in corporate housing until I found a place, to make the transition as smooth as possible. They needed me there as soon as I could manage. I told them I could be there in a week. She spent that day trying a different approach, being sweet and reasonable, suggesting couples therapy, promising to cut off contact with her ex, asking me to at least think about it before making such a huge decision. I told her I'd already thought about it, that this wasn't just about last night, but about a pattern I'd been ignoring for too long, about a relationship where I was always the one compromising, always the one adjusting, always the one expected to be understanding while my feelings were dismissed as insecurity or jealousy. The next few days were tense, but civil. We divided our stuff, figured out the lease, went through the mechanical process of untangling our lives. Her friends started texting me, trying to convince me I was making a mistake, that she really loved me, that I was being too harsh. I blocked most of them. The ones who actually knew what had been going on stayed quiet. I flew out on a Sunday, 5 days after that phone call. The company had set me up in a furnished apartment in a neighborhood I'd never heard of, in a city I'd only visited once for a conference. I was supposed to feel scared or uncertain, but instead I felt liberated. My phone stayed relatively quiet for the first few days. She sent a few texts asking if I'd landed safely, hoping I was settling in okay. I kept my responses brief and neutral. Then the messages started changing tone. She missed me. She'd made a mistake. She wanted to talk about giving things another chance. I ignored them. On my 4th day in the new city, I got up early and went for a run. The weather was perfect, nothing like the humid mess I'd left behind. I explored my new neighborhood, found a coffee shop I liked, sat on the balcony of my apartment watching the sun come up over unfamiliar buildings. I took a photo. Nothing special, just the view from where I was sitting with my morning coffee, the city waking up below me. That's when she texted again, said we needed to talk, that she'd been doing a lot of thinking, that she realized now how much I meant to her. She suggested she could come visit, or maybe I could come back for a weekend, that we could figure this out if we both really wanted to. I looked at that message for a long moment, then looked at the photo I'd just taken. I sent it to her without any caption, just the image. Watched the read receipt appear. Then I blocked her number. Update 1. It's been 3 months since I moved, and people keep asking me if I regret it. The honest answer is no, not even for a second, though the path to this point hasn't been quite what I expected. The first month was intense in the best way. My new position demanded everything I had, which left no time to dwell on the past. I was managing a team of 12, handling accounts I'd only dreamed about back home, and proving to the VP that taking a chance on me wasn't a mistake. I worked 60-hour weeks and loved every minute of it. The job was challenging, respected, everything I'd hoped it would be. She didn't take the hint when I blocked her. She tried calling from different numbers, sending emails, even reaching out to my work email, which was crossing a line I didn't think she'd cross. I never responded to any of it. My friends from back home told me she'd been posting cryptic things on social media, the usual post-breakup drama about knowing your worth and letting go of people who don't appreciate you. I deleted most of my social media before leaving, so I only heard about it secondhand. Then something interesting happened. About 6 weeks in, I got a message on a professional networking site from her ex, the one from the party that started everything. He apologized for reaching out, but said he felt like I should know some things. Apparently, she'd been telling people that I'd left her out of nowhere, that I'd gotten cold feet about commitment, that I'd been looking for an excuse to end things. He wanted me to know the truth, that she'd been pursuing him pretty aggressively after I left, trying to rekindle something that had ended badly years ago. He'd turned her down, and she hadn't taken it well. He shared some screenshots that showed a pattern I recognized. Her trying to make plans, him politely declining, her getting increasingly hostile when he wouldn't play along. The same cycle I'd lived through, just with a different target. He ended by saying he'd always felt guilty about being a source of tension in our relationship, but now he understood that the problem was never really about him or me. It was about her inability to respect boundaries or accept responsibility for her choices. I thanked him for reaching out and left it at that. There was no satisfaction in being proven right, just a dull acknowledgement that I'd made the correct decision even if I'd initially made it for slightly different reasons. Work introduced me to the local industry crowd through various networking events. I met people doing fascinating things, had conversations that energized me instead of draining me, started building a professional network that actually excited me. At one of these events, I met someone who worked in venture capital. She was sharp, funny, and we ended up talking for 2 hours about everything from market trends to terrible sci-fi movies. We exchanged information and started meeting for coffee occasionally, strictly professional at first, though I could feel something else developing underneath. I wasn't ready for anything serious, and I told her as much. She appreciated the honesty and said she wasn't in a rush either. We kept it casual, kept it light, just enjoying each other's company without pressure or expectations. It was refreshing in a way I hadn't experienced in years. My family finally made the trip out to visit around the 2-month mark. My mom walked into my apartment and immediately commented on how different I seemed. Lighter, she said. More like myself. My dad asked about the breakup once, very carefully, and accepted my brief explanation without pushing for details. They met my new colleagues at a team dinner, saw my office, got a tour of the city. When they left, my mom hugged me at the airport and told me she was proud of me for choosing myself for once. That hit harder than I expected. Back home, mutual friends started reaching out less frequently. The ones who really mattered had accepted my decision and moved on. The others, the ones who'd been more her friends than mine, had apparently chosen sides. I was fine with that. Building something new meant letting go of things that didn't serve me anymore, even if those things were comfortable or familiar. The most unexpected development came at the end of month 3. I got a call from her sister, someone I'd actually gotten along with during the relationship. She wanted to apologize for her role in trying to convince me to stay. She said she'd spent more time with her sister since the breakup and finally understood what I'd been dealing with. Their family was starting to see patterns they'd ignored for years, ways their sister manipulated situations to avoid accountability. She wasn't asking me to reconsider or forgive her sister, just wanted me to know that my decision made sense to her now, even if it hadn't at the time. We talked for almost an hour. She told me about the aftermath from her perspective, the ways her sister had tried to paint herself as the victim while simultaneously trying to jump into something new with the ex, and then spiraling when that didn't work out. She was in therapy now, apparently, which was good. Maybe she'd figure things out eventually. But that wasn't my responsibility anymore. I thanked her sister for calling and for being honest. We promised to stay in touch, and surprisingly, we actually did. She ended up visiting the city for work a month later, and we grabbed dinner. It was nice, having that connection to my past without the drama attached to it. The woman from the networking event and I started spending more time together. Nothing official, no labels, just two people enjoying each other's company and seeing where things went naturally. She'd been through her own messy breakup a year earlier and understood the need to take things slow. We went hiking on weekends, tried new restaurants, had long conversations about our goals and fears and the things we wanted out of life. It felt easy in a way that relationship never had. Update 2. 6 months in, and my life had become unrecognizable in the best possible way. The regional director position was everything I'd hoped and more. I'd successfully landed 3 major accounts that had been considered long shots. My team was functioning like a well-oiled machine, and the VP had started including me in strategic planning meetings that were typically reserved for more senior leadership. My career had taken the kind of leap that normally required a decade of grinding, all because I'd been willing to take a risk when it mattered most. The woman from the networking event had gradually become more central to my life, though we'd both been intentional about keeping things at a comfortable pace. Her name was irrelevant to this story, but what mattered was how different she was from what I'd left behind. She communicated directly, respected boundaries without needing them explained multiple times, and approached conflict as something to resolve together rather than a battle to be won. We'd made things official around month 4, and it felt right in a way that didn't require constant reassurance or validation. Then came the message I wasn't expecting. My ex's mother reached out through an old email address I'd forgotten I'd given her years ago. She apologized for contacting me, but wanted me to know her daughter had been struggling significantly since the breakup. She wasn't asking me to reach out or reconsider anything, just wanted me to understand the impact my leaving had. She mentioned therapy, mentioned how her daughter was finally starting to take responsibility for things, mentioned how the whole family had done a lot of reflecting on the patterns they'd enabled over the years. I appreciated her reaching out, told her I hoped her daughter found what she needed, but made it clear that chapter of my life was closed. She understood, thanked me for being kind, and that was that. It was closure I didn't know I needed, a confirmation that my decision had rippled beyond just the two of us, forcing everyone in that orbit to confront some uncomfortable truths. Around this same time, I got approached by a competing company trying to recruit me. The offer was substantial, almost 40% more than I was currently making, but I turned it down. I liked where I was, liked the trajectory I was on, and more importantly, I'd learned that chasing money at the expense of everything else was a trap. My current position gave me challenge and growth and respect, which mattered more than a bigger number on a paycheck. I bought a house. Nothing massive, just a 3-bedroom place with a yard and a view of the hills. My first major purchase that was entirely mine, no compromise, no input from anyone else. I furnished it slowly, deliberately, choosing pieces I actually liked instead of whatever someone else thought would look good. My girlfriend helped me paint the living room one weekend, and we ordered pizza and drank beer and laughed about how terrible we were at staying inside the lines. It was the kind of simple, perfect moment that made all the upheaval worth it. My career continued accelerating. I got asked to speak at an industry conference, presenting on strategies that had worked in my region. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of professionals who actually wanted to hear what I had to say, I felt a surge of validation that had nothing to do with anyone else's approval. I'd built this. I'd taken a moment of personal crisis and turned it into a launching pad for everything I'd been too comfortable to chase before. Life wasn't perfect. I still had hard days, still occasionally wondered what might have happened if I'd stayed and tried to work things out. But those moments became increasingly rare, increasingly brief. The truth was that leaving had given me back something I didn't realize I'd lost: the ability to prioritize my own well-being without guilt. The most poetic moment came during a business trip that took me back to my old city. I had meetings with potential clients and figured I'd handle them personally rather than sending someone from my team. I stayed in a hotel downtown, not far from the apartment we'd shared, and the whole city felt like visiting a museum of my former life. I ran into one of our mutual friends at a coffee shop near my hotel. She seemed surprised to see me, asked how I was doing, made small talk for a few minutes. Then she mentioned my ex was dating someone new, seemed happy, seemed to be doing better. She said it like it was information I needed or wanted, like it might hurt me to hear. I told her that was great, that I hoped things worked out for her. And I meant it. There was no bitterness, no satisfaction, no lingering attachment. Just genuine indifference, the kind that comes from truly moving on. My meetings went well. I closed one deal and got strong interest on another. That evening, I went to a restaurant my girlfriend and I had been wanting to try, one that had opened after I left. I sat at the bar, had an excellent meal, and looked around at the city that used to be home. It was nice, familiar, but it didn't call to me anymore. I flew back the next day to my real home, where my real life was waiting. My girlfriend picked me up from the airport, asked how the trip went, listened to me talk about the business side, while carefully not asking about anything personal. That night, sitting on the couch in my house with her curled up next to me, I realized I'd successfully rebuilt my entire existence from the ground up in 6 months. The revenge wasn't in rubbing my success in anyone's face or making sure my ex knew what she'd lost. The revenge was in becoming genuinely happy, in creating a life so fulfilling that the old one became irrelevant. The revenge was in discovering that I didn't need revenge at all, that the best response to being undervalued was simply to go somewhere you'd be valued instead. People online love to imagine dramatic confrontations, perfect comebacks, moments where the person who wronged you realizes their mistake and begs for another chance while you coldly reject them. Real life doesn't work that way. Real revenge is quieter, more personal. It's building something so good that you forget why you were angry in the first place. I never sent another photo or message or update. That one image from my new apartment on my fourth day was the last communication we ever had, and it said everything that needed saying. I moved on. I built better. I became the version of myself I'd been suppressing to make a broken relationship work. Would I recommend everyone burn their life down and move across the country after a bad breakup? Probably not. But sometimes the universe presents you with an opportunity disguised as a disaster, and the smartest thing you can do is recognize it for what it is and take the leap. I took the leap. I'm still flying.